Welcome back, everyone. We're here on page 3 in part 2 of Burn Pit. We've got our pre-rendered picture here, and we will save it. And let's go file, open as layer. Oh, oops. Percent 34. There we go. I'm going to hold off on cutting that one. So, I think I spent the last couple of days um, basically remodeling Simon's house from the story Simon's Lament. Um, but I only did a partial build on it. I have to say I love this design. It's kind of simple, and I think that's why I modeled it, remodeled it. Basically, what I want to do in this section is start introducing um, the people he's going to be working with, who are going to be growing with him from here on out. So, we met Erica at the end of the last story, and we got a little bit of her in this part, the first 2 pages. So what I want to do is start introducing the other 4 characters before you start delving into it too deeply. So basically, what I needed were like these sort of single room vignettes, like I did with Erica, for each of the characters, and I thought it would be. Let's turn off the scene. So here's the layout. As you can see, it's empty. This thing is unfinished, by the way. Like I said that already, but yeah. And it's not really furnished. But what I want to do is like set up these little vignettes. So I was kind of looking into the old houses from previous stories that I could possibly kind of pass off individual rooms as something different. Like with Erica's house, that's the with Erica's room, that's actually the house I used in Friends Forever, and then like I reused it in the one-off story, A New Sort of Diet. I sort of reused it there, but I think the thing is like the rooms have sort of distinctive windows, so I sort of like was going to look at using another house with less distinctive windows. And I thought, and like I said, I sort of revisited Simon's Lament, and I love the design of that house, so I kind of went and remodeled it. Because, like, in all honesty, I created that house before I got into working with Hexagon and doing like, actual modeling of these things. Whereas, like, before that, see, and there's a background for the window. But whereas before I started using Hexagon, um, basically the strategy for house building was to just come into Daz and use the create primitive and create a cube. Um, Create the cube however big I wanted it, and then on divisions, um, divide it up so that I had enough faces. It is the divisions is how many faces per side. of the cube. So if it's one division, there's only one um, polygon per side. If I do, I don't know if it's, I forget now how it goes, but like if you do two divisions, it should create two polygons per side, or it's like I said, I can't remember now. It's either two. Actually, let's just create a cube. I'm going to turn off the house, create the cube. I'm going to show you this. Okay, so two divisions creates it with 2 by 2. The polygon count 2 by 2, so you end up creating 4 faces per side. And the more divisions you create, the more faces per side, and the smaller you make it, so that um, when I go to turn this cube into a wall, I can sort of flatten it to make it wall width, and then use like X to resize it. And that's basically how I used to create walls for rooms. And then what you can do is go into Tools Geometry Editor, and you can then proceed to cut out holes for the doors and window to pop the doors and windows in. But of course, like if you're creating the cube, you create it with enough faces so that the hole you cut fits the doors and windows you're using. But the only problem with this is the issue is that, or the downside, however you want to put it, is that to create enough faces to start cutting out doors and windows, you end up creating a wall that's very high poly count. It's got a very high polygon count, and polygons can tend to slow down work on a project. So the idea is, let's delete the cube. I'll put the house back on. I'm going to turn off the sky so I can show you this, but turn off the sky sphere. Okay, so actually I think I got to turn off the yard as well. So like basically remodeling the house in hexagon. This might be hard to see. So if you look over here, let's get the wall. So if you look over at this wall over here, you can see how I can model the holes exactly how I want without having to create a million different polygons. Let's take the structure off for a minute. No, I can't put the wall. Okay, hold on. Let me move the yard up to house. So here's the yard. So I grabbed the yard is my. Let's go back to texture sheet. So the yard is basically a flat plane I use for to create the ground, and to go back to lit wireframe. So it's like the yard I lifted from Simon's Lament rather than remodeling it. So as you can see, I basically created a plane with about 1,000 different, subdivided into about 1,000 different polygons, just for the sole reason of being able to create. Let's go to texture again. The different material zones. And this is why I want to remodel the house, is because this yard is very high poly, because I kind of created it without hexagon. Whereas, like if I were to remodel this, sort of redo the ground plane in hexagon, I could basically do these as big swaths of single polygons, maybe like two or three. Maybe like maybe two or three, depending on how it needed to be divided. But so like the driveway could have been just one polygon. The road could have been one polygon instead of 500 little squares. But that's what I do with the houses. That's what I was wanted to do with. Let's park you back into structure. And that's kind of why I sort of bothered to remodel this house, because I wanted it because I'm sort of moving towards lower polygon structures and away from the old way of doing things. I think as I become more sophisticated with actual modeling, but and like I said, I'm really thinking of reusing this house in a future project. So it would be nice to have the model all ready to go, so that when it comes time, whenever I decide on what project it's going to get used in, um, I don't have to spend like 2 days getting this far. I can just kind of dig up this file again and finish it off, add the roof, put some trim around the outside. Maybe even separate the front of this house into multiple material zones to make it more interesting. That sort of thing. But I don't really plan on needing the roof. I don't really, like I said, for this project, I'm only planning on using individual rooms, so I kind of did enough to give me what I want. And what I'll end up doing, let's take the ceiling off again, is like in this room, I created like a corner. I sort of furnished the corner of the living room to make this Ray's house. For another project, or I should say, for the next person he meets, I'll probably decorate. Not probably, but I'll decorate this bedroom, for example, and pass this room off as somebody else's house, and then like decorate this bedroom, and so on and so on. Um, and now that I'm looking at this, I seem to be missing a door. There's supposed to be a door here. What if I got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's a 10th door there? Let me just check into this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. Okay, so somewhere the door never got added, but that's not a problem. But yeah, that's the house. And this is going to pass off as Ray's room, because the idea is, long term, I don't really want him training all 5 of these people in 5 different locations. It's I sort of anticipate that almost probably early in this part, he's going to get the idea to move all these people into his own house, so that they can all train on his home gym, instead of him having to like leave equipment at everybody's house, having to travel all over the place. So that's why at the end of the last piece, when he meets Erica, he mentions her father, because the implication is that she's living at her parents' house, or at least her father's house, so that there's like no entanglement when it comes time to move in. It's her parents' place, so there's no. Um, so there's no worries about packing up and just spending a couple of years at his place. Let's see. Um, this shirt is a pain to work with, and it looks like the pants are too. So basically, what I'm going to do here is just, let's see, make you invisible and you invisible and the pelvis invisible. And what'll that do will let the back side of the clothing fit peek through instead of the skin. So it won't be glaring when this goes on the page. So let's render that. And we'll go work on this part while we're waiting on that one. Control C. I'm not 100% sure, but I think these are taking less time to render in these smaller sets than they were um, in his house. I'm not sure. I'll see in a moment. Let's go paste it as. So hopefully these won't take like 10 to 15 minutes between pictures, and I don't have to cut away between each one. Um, oops, and I'm on the wrong. So let's go FA. And size is 10. Okay. So caps like that. Shoot. Yeah. Okay, that should work. Let's just take that to the next page. Let's see if I can get his full name to. Yeah, okay, that looks good. So, size this. Shoot. Sort of in the spare time here um, when I've just been like too tired and not very clear focused to work on this story. I've been spending a little bit of time working on another project that doesn't really need me to be quite so attentive, doesn't need me to be quite so clear headed. So, like I said, all the settings on GIMP here are off. Um, and I got used to, like, let's see, invert. What am I doing? I'm kind of in the mind frame of a different, working in sort of a different mode. So I'm trying to get back into, uh, I'm trying to get back into the mindset of how this project works, which is weird because I really didn't spend that much time on the other project to where I should be like losing myself this much. Layer to image size. Invert. Grow. So that's why you'll see me like using shift when I don't need to, because I wasn't working in caps lock, so everything was properly formatted. No. What's the time frame on this one? 5 minutes? Okay, so he should be saying something. Let's go Control C. Good to see you. And let's see if I can get this. Come on. Okay, that's a little. I think that's a little better. Let's deal with that. Control C. Edit. Paste as. I think also in the spare time category, I've been playing around with in sort of like the creating random category, create random characters, looking for inspiration for future stories. And I've got a pair. I do have a pair that I really like that I've been playing with. Um, Trying to come up with a story, thinking of like what to do with them as a story wise. Okay, so so this is still taking 10 minutes. But yeah, like I'm thinking with this house, like I said, for a future project, I'm sort of thinking with the two characters I've been playing around with, it could work for like a maybe something with maybe like another college roommate story, only with this time sort of like housemates renting off campus housing. And this house would be perfect because it's 3 bedrooms, but it's not very big. Or it doesn't feel very big, I should say. Whereas, like, um, Roger's house is, what did I put on, 4 bedrooms? And the house just like, to me, working in that model, the house feels big. Whereas for some reason, this one doesn't. Even though the only difference is it's like a difference of 1 bedroom in the garage. But, it's the idea with this model. I could bring in a third character, or sort of I've got 2 other characters that in the playing around folder that could work as well. So maybe like 2 of them are sharing a room. And I just sort of need a story to go with it. Oh my god. Well, still, this isn't too bad. When I went to do I sort of put a neighborhood over here, and then let's open the layer. I know I do that, start a story, and then, but I put in a neighborhood, then position the camera within the house, looking straight out, and then made everything else but the neighborhood invisible. Um, Scale. Rendered the image of the neighborhood from the point of view of the house, and then put the image on a flat plane. Or I should say, I blurred the image and then put it on the flat plane, so that this thing doesn't have to render the stupid neighborhood every single time I'm looking out the window, and I don't have to render this in layers and blur the image each time like I was doing in previous projects. Okay, yeah, we'll cut it there. But it's like, unlike these, rendering the neighborhood. Oh boy. Okay, let's move you here. I don't like. Ugh. I'm gonna trim this down. Not trim it down, but let's crop the layer to select. I'm gonna be on the right one. Okay, layer crop to selection. But rendering the neighborhood just for that banner, just for the billboard there, it like ended up approaching 3 hours, and it was still only 75% done. So I said to heck with it. It's not a fully The image isn't sort of fully rendered, but in blurring it, it hides it enough. Um, No, I don't. I was thinking of putting it up here, but I really don't want to cover the picture. I think the would be more interesting than seeing legs. So, uh, so actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a camera. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I'm gonna use that, but what I'm gonna do is save this, and I'm gonna cut to another scene just for a panel or two, and then we'll come back. So let's open. I don't want characters, I want files, and we're going to go into here. So hopefully this will come up quickly. So what I'm going to do is let's go to layer. I'm going to start going ahead and giving these the borders, and hopefully that will load. Layer. Make that invisible. Let's go select invert. Okay. Okay, let's save this before we forget, or before we go overwriting my guide, and then I have to re-import that. Okay, and this isn't going to load quick, so what I'm going to do is... Oh, there it goes. Yay! So we're going to go here to pass it. So what I want to do is... You guys are just generic, so let's put them into... Hmm. Okay, I thought I had a unused folder, so let's just create a group for unused. Okay, there we go. And then we'll just make them invisible. Or not. And I think, what the heck? Junk. Oh, okay. I'm gonna make the junk folder, the junk group visible. Maybe. Pretty much why this thing is lagging right now after just opening it is because the way DES works is that when it loads the file, all the textures that are on everything, um, if there's some sort of alteration to it, like it's not a direct load from folder, um, like sometimes if you take a texture and then come into layered image editor and waiting. If I were to like add a separate layer over this, and make it kind of translucent or whatever, or color this, or even rotate it if it's if the texture loaded into the diffuse, or actually any of these, I think any of these parameters aren't the original textures um, directed from a specific file. DAZ Studios will sit and create a temp file for it. In a temporary folder, and basically when you open the project, you're waiting for DAZ Studios to create all those temp files, and that's why it ends up lagging. It's because the CPU is busy. So if you remember, hold on. If you remember the page from the first part, where I had with the two images from here, in this first image with the pit itself, this was supposed to be a direct reference, because here is Ray. We've sort of made the character a little bit younger, just like Roger, and the one holding the computer monitor is Erica. Come on. Oh, we're still dealing with these TDL make things. So what I want to do as this goes on, what I want to do is add the other characters one by one into this scene. The idea is that, like, after 10 years, he doesn't, 10 years, you kind of forget people. With the number of people he served with over the years, it's easy to imagine he forgot these people that he served with for probably one tour 10 years ago. Oh my god. Okay, you know what? This is going to be annoying. So I'm going to cut off, and I'll come back when this is done loading all those stupid temp files. Okay, so I went ahead and staged the image and rendered it, which was good because I had nearly a mishap that cost me about a half hour on this. Let's see, here's the mishapped image. So let's just delete that and open as layers. Scale 34. No, 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 no. I'm on the wrong size image in my head here. Okay, 45. So I'm just going to move that over. It's too much. Come on. So what I want is, let's see, Control C, and then we go edit, paste as new layer. Let's see. There I go with the shift key again. No, no, I'm off here. I'm trying to remember. See, I love doing these military stories, but I honestly like I was never military, so everything I put in is sort of like research. And I just like I meant to do three. So like E2 would have been a private first class, E3 would have been lance corporal. Oops, I got an extra space there. Okay, I think I'm gonna keep that box the same way. The way it is, the text, and let's see. And what are we looking at this way? Okay, scale. And with this scene here, if you remember in the first part when I used the scene, they had, had the fire in the pit, so I added an orange light to sort of give it a bit of a glow in the area. No, I gotta undo. I gotta select. Forgot to invert first. So it's the downside is you don't see the fire in this one, but you got the glow to kind of indicate it. Okay, I'm gonna use this box layer. Ah, so invert. Let's go edit, paste as new. Undo, edit, paste as new layer. My finger keeps hitting the left button before the pointer is where it needs to be. So let's merge that down. Select none. Go ahead and let's go layer to image size. Hold the shift key to get the bottom part, and this one gets cut. And edit, paste as new layer. Invert, and we go shrink. Yes. Invert and edit, cut. There we go again. Merge down. Okay, save that, file save. And I will save this for the heck of it. And I'm going to, again, cut out and reload the house scene. I suppose, because I've got the official release and the beta version, I suppose I could have loaded the house, loaded this scene into the official release, rendered it there, and then come back. But it seems it. I don't know if it's just from one of the more recent releases that um, tends to have the program tends to have problems when I sort of render back and forth like that. So I usually will, so usually if I do that and I come back to the beta version, um, I'll usually get the program crashing when I go to render it. And that does seem to be a new house, a new phenomena. So I think it's probably something they broke in one of the more recent releases. So it usually just becomes less of a hassle to switch back and forth within the beta version instead of going back and forth between the beta and the pro build. But I'll see you in a moment when this gets loaded and all the temp files are in. And here I am back. Sort of went ahead and rendered the next image because it took more than 12 minutes. We were going to cut anyway, so here's the next image. We'll save that and bring it over here. Let me go ahead and set this next image up. Da, 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 da. I'll be looking up just a little bit. Down. Not sure this isn't going to get, his hand isn't going to get hidden beneath the word bubble, but anyway, we're going to do it anyway. So it doesn't look so static. Straight. And with my little neighborhood billboard back here. I'm gonna keep moving it back and forth. Where are we? No, this is plain. Okay, there we go. We just delete the key to make sure that there's always an image in the window. Just a little bit. Offset it a little bit so that this little corner shelf of junk shows up in the image to at least make it a little more interesting. And I didn't put it there for nothing, I guess. So we'll number that and go Control C on that one. Let's minimize that a little bit. And I was kind of hinting to it is sort of up here in the word bubble, having him refer to the ranks Z2 and E3, kind of make it like a little more realistic that he's military. But probably when I go through and sort of edit this to an extent, I will probably switch those back because there's that's the challenge is, do you make it realistic, or do you make it relatable to people who weren't in the military? So I'll probably change it from E2 and E3 to private first class and lance corporal. Let's probably when I'm done, I'll hit that later. Oops, put a period after the exclamation point. And we'll just down. Okay. Layered image size. Let's fuzzy select and edit cut. Paste as new layer. Select invert. Select shrink. Yeah, I think earlier I was talking about how two characters in the folder of test characters that I wanted to do. Let's copy that. It's like at this point it's just brainstorming. I'm thinking more likely what I'm gonna do with them will be like a one-off. Will be a like a one-off story. It'll end up being it'll end up being Short Tales number 4 rather than a full-blown 100 to 150 page story. I'm going to end up having to take this to 2 anyway. Okay, you know what? I'm going to copy this, Control C on that, and let's go edit, paste as new layer. And I'm just going to delete this. And I got this layer. Let's go layer. I don't do this too much. I think I would. Instead of resizing these bubbles constantly, you'd think I'd have presets for different numbers of lines and just use those, but shoot. Oh well. You know what I can do? I can just cut this off. There we go. I'm thinking the two I've got, what I'm talking, the ones I'm looking at. I'm thinking it's right now just they're suitable for sort of just like a premise where it's just roommates living into their new home, and whatever the plot device is, one or more of them start shrinking, and it's just 24 pages of fun, like the previous, like a new sort of diet and teddy bear, where there's no real deep story like this one. Uh, you know what? I'm gonna snip it here. We'll come back when this is done. And now I'm back with the last picture for this page. So we will save. And I gotta put you off. Layers. So it goes 34. So I'm thinking what I might do with this part. Layer image size. Is I might just do the introduction for these other three people here real quick. 4 and 5. And kind of move them quickly into the house. We'll just sort of gloss over this early training a little bit to kind of move on to the good stuff, if you want to call it that. What am I doing? Oh, I'm not sure I want the story getting hung up in the early stages of um, their whatchamacallit. My mind is kind of fried all of a sudden at the moment. But let's see. I just I think it won't be quite so interesting having these one-on-ones with each of the characters for most of this part, as it will be having them all together, sort of like sharing memories and reminiscing and doing all that stuff while they're hanging out. But let's see, where are we? Let's pop these into that folder. But I don't know. I'll see. Right now, I'm getting awful hungry and it's wearing me out mentally. So soon after I started training Erica, I got another call from Dr. Palmer. Ray Washington agreed to meet with me. It's good to see you, man. You're looking good after all this time. I remember him as soon as I heard the name. Ray joined the platoon fresh out of basic. He was a lowly private, but he was driven and ambitious. He made E2 and E3 before the tour. I gotta fix that. I keep seeing that and forgetting to fix it. Over. I expected to see him make sergeant in the next tour, but he was transferred out of my platoon as soon as we got back stateside. I made first sergeant before I got out. Hey, good for you. I remember no one deserved it more than you. That is page 3. I do hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time, whenever that is.